Hello and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And this is Mark Florence.
And today we're talking about Cabin Fever. Mark, this movie came out in 2003. And we were dating at that time, but we didn't see it together. I don't know where you were, but I saw this movie alone in the movie theater. So what was happening?
I think we were going through a rough patch at that point.
No, we've never had a rough patch. It's been perfect. What are you talking about?
I have no recollection of this movie or you seeing it, so.
Yeah, you definitely did not see it with me. I went to see it by myself. And so, spoiler alert, I was disappointed. And I was recently like, I need to give this movie another chance. And I rewatched it and you watched it for the first time. And it didn't hold up for me. It probably sat with me as much as it did the first time.
I never remember you mentioning this movie. I've never heard of this movie. And it was very forgettable.
Yikes. Okay. A few facts about the movie. It is 62% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's pretty solid. It had a budget of $1.5 million, and it made $30 million at the box office. Eli Roth, he directed it, and maybe wrote it too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but here's the thing. I feel like it's an homage to some classic horror. I feel like it's a little bit Evil Dead, a little bit Friday the 13th. What other classic horror movies was I comparing it to?
Well, I thought the beginning was a lot like Deliverance with the scene of the small town like store and the weird kid. A lot like the beginning of Deliverance with the weird kid who ends up biting. Not the kid in Deliverance didn't bite anybody, but in this movie they did.
Yes, I was absolutely 100% getting Deliverance vibes. So, it had all of that. I think a big problem. So some of this is dated. Like maybe I should forgive it. They use the N word, but that was like a character thing. But they use the word gay as a negative. And it was that of the era. I don't know. Maybe didn't we already know better by then? I hope so. But I think some of the dialogue and the acting wasn't great.
Yeah, people used to say that. They call stuff gay, but I feel like in a movie you wouldn't do that. So I'm kind of surprised they did that. And like you said, they used the N word. You had the kind of the cliche old man at the store who warns the kids about the evil. That's in a lot of different horror movies. Yeah,
true. You had told me, I didn't know because I never watched Boy Meets World, but you told me that the main guy is the friend from Boy Meets World. Did you watch that show?
Yeah, I used to watch it, like not religiously, but I used to watch it. Fred Savage's younger brother was the main guy in Boy Meets World, and I feel like the guy's name was like Sean or something on Boy Meets World. I don't know, I could be wrong. But he was the main character in Cabin Fever, so like the whole time he had like the same haircut and stuff, so the whole time I'm like, oh, I just thought Boy Meets World every time I saw the guy.
So when I was reading about the making of this movie and that the final scene when he's drenched in blood, he was like that on set and he just took like a walk through the woods while they were filming. Like they had a little bit of a break and he came upon like a field trip. It was Girl Scouts or something. And at first they were horrified and he's like, no, it's like we're filming a movie. And then they realized that he was from Boy Meets World because he said who he was. And these girls literally chased him because they were so, like, in love with him or whatever. And so after that day, he said he would never leave set again because he regretted, he literally was chased by a bunch of prepubescent teens.
Hate when that happens. Yeah, he was kind of like a Jonathan Taylor Thomas kind of type of whatever you want to call that, like teeny bopper idols at that time. So... yeah, I can see him being chased by prepubescent girls.
There's this scene where they're sitting around the campfire. So P.S. They're on spring break. No, wait. Is it spring break? It's end of the semester. What's happening?
I think school just ended for the semester and they're in college for the summer because the girl tells some little kids, like, don't go to college or something.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So they are, they're trying to cut loose, get away. They're sitting around the campfire and they're telling scary stories. So I think it's our main character who tells the story about the slaughter that apparently happened at his local bowling alley, which is where he loved to hang out. But some guy held a bunch of people hostage, tied them up in chairs, and then, what did he kill them with? An axe?
I can't remember. It seemed like they're just trying to make an excuse to, make this scene because he's just telling the story. Like, come on, tell him the bowling alley story. But yeah, he tied them all up in chairs, facing each other, and he, cut all their arms or killed them in front of each other. And then the bald guy who worked at the movie theater, he got his head cut off.
Bowling alley.
What did I say? Okay, sorry. He got his head cut off, and it was found in, the ball return thing, so.
Because he was bowling with limbs. So, yeah, I mean, it literally played no part in the plot. You would think, this will come back. But I feel like it was a thought in someone's head, but it wasn't enough to base a movie on. So they were like, oh, let's just tell the story and we'll show it in a flashback sort of way. I mean, I guess it sort of set a tone, but I don't know.
I felt like a lot of this was just an excuse to show a scene or do something. I felt like they had that kind of stuff in mind first and tried to build the plot around it. So a lot of it seemed to not make sense or not be all that great.
So this dude shows up with his dog out of the woods and he's like, hey, can I join your campfire? They're like, absolutely not. And then he's like, oh, I guess I'll just smoke this bag of weed by myself. Mark, that's a big bag of weed. So I have to tell you, and everyone who listens to the podcast knows, I was stage managing Carrie, the musical, and I had to come up with props for the show. And I had to come up with this. It's supposed to be the character shows up with a bag of weed. And I did my research. I went to Michael's and I got this moss that, it resembles weed. I'm naive, you guys. I'm sorry. I came with this half-gallon baggie worth. And we found out pretty quickly, who knew weed and who didn't. And it was oh, this is way too much. You need, a fourth of this to be believable. It's too expensive. Mark, how much do you think how much weed he had was worth? Because that's how much weed I brought to the rehearsal as a prop. And people were like, no, that's worth too much money.
I don't know, maybe $150 maybe?
You naive bastard! I was told it was worth way more than that when I brought my prop bag.
I didn't see your bag. I did not see your prop bag. I mean, I obviously saw the play and I loved it and it was great and everything, but I guess I didn't notice the prop bag. But
no, you didn't see the original one because it was way too much, and so I reduced it down to a snack size baggie because apparently you don't get a half-gallon stuffed bag of weed for in a high school budget. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, back in my glory days, I was used to seeing very small amounts in a very small Ziploc bag, so I guess I can't comment on that.
Okay. Okay, so they invite this guy to stay now because he's got the weed, but the storm is approaching and he's got to go cover up all his business because he's camping. I don't know, and that guy hardly came into play again. I mean, we end up seeing his dead body, I guess, but it was almost what was the point of this? I guess just to introduce the dog?
Yeah, it just seemed really out of place that this random dude shows up out of nowhere when you feel like they're just isolated in the woods by themselves. The whole plot and the whole movie was kind of like that. Just stuff would happen out of nowhere. So, I don't know. Whatever.
So the guy that ends up being... it's not Patient Zero, probably, because I think there is a sequel to this movie called Patient Zero. But the guy who ends up giving them this disease, he's just wandering. And I can't remember the guy, his character name, but he's the guy wearing the FU hat. he accidentally shoots this dude and leaves him to die. And then later, of course, this guy comes back and, he's infecting everyone with this disease. Now, the disease is based on the flesh-eating bacteria, which is a real thing, and that is terrifying. And so apparently, I think a camera person who worked on this movie did suffer from flesh-eating bacteria, but he survived. But can you imagine?
No, I can't. I'm gonna side note here. A long time ago, we drove to Roswell, New Mexico, and then I remember as we were driving back up, we stayed in like Oklahoma City or something, in some really crappy like Howard Johnson or Motel. Was it 6? No, whatever, 8 or Howard Johnson. And I read like a headline in the paper that said there was people in Oklahoma City with flesh-eating bacteria. So then I was all paranoid that I was going to get it.
Oh my gosh. That was literally, okay, besides that one hotel that we didn't even stay at in Columbus, Ohio, that was the worst hotel experience ever. We went to Columbus, Ohio, and we checked into this hotel, and it was like a murder scene hotel. Like, we literally went and asked for our money back. Like, we checked out and found some place outside of the city, because this place was like, if there was a black light, we would have been glowing. It literally had stains everywhere, and they were visible, like, to the naked eye. So, yike. But yeah.
And I was sick, and Kelly was going to go to this horror convention thing. So I was just going to be hanging out in the room the whole time because I had like a really bad cold. So like this was like the last place you'd want to be for 2 seconds. So we ended up just saying we can't stay here. I don't think they charged us, and we got like a pretty crappy hotel that seemed like heaven compared to this one.
Yeah, I think it was a Days Inn, and guess what? That was heaven, truly, compared to visible stains, and like everything was dirty. You name it, it had a stain on it. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I think that at some point in your life, and we've reached that point, you just don't stay in hostels anymore, and you don't stay in stained hotel rooms. Like, you need to upgrade to the Days Inn at some point, right?
I totally agree. The Knights Inn. Do not go to the Knights Inn in Columbus. If you want to read some funny reviews of a hotel, read those. Super funny.
Knights Inn, Columbus, Ohio. Google it right now. Go on Yelp or whatever. They're telling the truth.
Yeah, one said like cars kept pulling up and going to the room next to him all night for like 5 minutes. And like some random pit bulls just like walking around in the parking lot, so he was afraid to go outside.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was real. Okay, so the guy who we find out, I mean, he's got this virus or flesh-eating bacteria or whatever. He comes and coughs up blood over everything, and they end up like torching him. I mean, he dies by fire, and then he ends up in the water supply. But nobody knows this at this point. He's floating, though, and they show us this long pipe going from where his decaying, burnt, charred body is laying. They show us the pipe going into the water supply into the cabin. Now, these two dudes the night before around the campfire were like, I'm only going to drink beer this weekend. Like, me too. Like, guess what? That's every weekend for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no. Baby. Not really. But, they're like, oh, I won't drink water. But that's the smartest decision they ever make when they follow through. But one of them doesn't. Spoiler alert. Oh, my God. Like, this water and a dead body laying in it with like this extremely contagious flesh-eating bacteria? Hell no.
And I can't remember how, but they go over they're like going to these houses to look for like a way out because their car's messed up or something. And this lady's cutting up a pig, and she's like, oh no, it's infected or something. And then they're in the house later, and they see a picture on the wall of her husband, I believe, and it's the guy. It's the dead guy with the virus. So that hit pretty hard.
Awkward. Yeah, they literally killed that guy. And, apparently in self-defense, but it's not okay. Now, one of the characters, she canoes around somehow and they all end up meeting each other. But I grew up, we canoed a lot. So something famous in Minnesota, or maybe nationwide, is the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. It's untouched land near the Canadian border here in Minnesota, and you can go camping and fishing and all of those things, and the land is untouched. And the only way to reach it is via canoe. You can't even use motorized boats, right, Mark?
Yeah, in most parts you cannot use motorized boats, so that's really nice. Like people they come from like every state in the country to go there and like just unwind, get away, and experience the beautiful wilderness as God made it.
Now, here's my humble brag. Are you ready for this? I don't even know if you know this story. I met Bruce Campbell's brothers and father back when he was doing Shane, the play, in Ohio. And I was just like sitting and talking to them because they came the same night that I was there. And this is the story of my life. It's my only claim to fame. And also, they stayed at the same hotel we did, so we rode up in the elevator with them and had a chat.
Was it the Knights Inn in Columbus, Ohio?
Hell no. It was in Xenia, Ohio. And it's an amazing outdoor theater, so you should go there. But
really quick, though, weren't they a little taken aback when you noticed them? Like, you're Bruce Campbell's brother.
Yeah, I mean, they were because no one else went up to them, Mark. And that's showing how much of a super fan I am.
You are a super fan and you're very dedicated, so that's awesome.
Okay, so when I met them, they told me, I'm like, oh, I'm from Minnesota. And they're like, oh, we were just up there at the Boundary Waters, and we stayed in Ely, and we went out on this trip, and Bruce was with us, and I was like, holy crap. So then, literally a month later, I was at another horror convention, and I sat with Bruce at this VIP dinner because, you know me, I got to buy the VIP. And I was like, oh, I've heard you've been to the Boundary Waters with your brother. And it was probably like too much. I probably crossed the line. But he's like, yeah. And he like talked about how he loved it and stuff.
That's awesome. Like, when is that restraining order over, though?
Yeah, probably. Like, seriously. No, if I lived closer to him, I probably would have a restraining order because I love Bruce Campbell so much. But you guys, he's an icon. We literally named our son Campbell, though. So you're part of it too.
I am. I'm an accomplice. I'm an accomplice. But he appreciated the fact that our son was named Campbell, right?
He did, and Campbell met him in Chicago, and he's like, "How do you spell your name?" And I'm like, "Just like yours." Yeek!
He's like, "I remember you from 8 years ago."
But Mark, remember when we met him right after we got married? And I'm like, this is the 4th time I've met you. And he's like, yep, I remember every time. And he rolled his eyes. But obviously he didn't. And that's okay with me because I get it. He's a celeb.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. He's a nice, down-to-earth guy. So if you ever see that Bruce Campbell's in your town, go meet him, get an autograph, and just tell him you're a big fan.
Now, speaking of canoeing, at Boundary Waters, that was my first experience, but we also had a cabin growing up, and the funniest story ever, my cousin Sean, like, she was like, yeah, put me in the canoe, push me out. And so we pushed her as hard as we could, and it was too much, and she fell back and broke a paddle with her back. Like, that's probably too much, right?
Yeah, you're not supposed to be playing around on the water.
And then my other canoeing story is that we did a canoe day trip when I went to camp. I went to Concordia Language Village's Finnish camp. And our day trip, consisted of canoeing, and I did not want to switch places with anyone because I was too nervous. And so I literally paddled all day and I got the worst sunburn.
Yeah, no, I mean, being out there, especially with your skin type, you got to wear sunscreen.
I sunburn very easily. Mark, are you a good canoeer? You've been to the Boundary Waters.
Yeah, we went with my dad and your dad and my brother like a long time ago. And the most memorable thing from the trip, we had a great trip, but my dad brought like a suitcase that you'd like walk through an airport with. Like
A rolling suitcase.
Yeah, like a rolling suitcase. So when we were portaging the canoe, he was like rolling his suitcase. So I know he did it on purpose to be funny, but he just wanted to seem like a city guy. Like a lot of things like did not make sense to me in this movie. Like the virus had already taken over a few people. People were dying. You didn't know who had it. People were missing, and then the blonde guy leaves, and his girlfriend's still there, and the guy from Boy Meets World and her are like, or him like, this might be our last dinner. So they have this like gratuitous sex scene.
Yeah, absolutely unnecessary. And like, I don't know. I guess I haven't been faced with the conundrum of we're all going to die. So, but his girlfriend, which, you know, I realize it's recent and new, but his girlfriend is literally dying in a shed, and he's going to have sex with this rando. I mean, she's not a rando because they're all friends, but seriously. And her boyfriend left for the woods with, you know, all the beer that he could carry. And that was the smartest move he ever made because he's not drinking water. But at the same time, you know, dude. And so that's the other thing, Mark, that I did not appreciate is that we know that she is sick. We know that she is not feeling well. And he's laying in bed with her. Like, she's got a fever or something. Like, something is happening. She's saying, oh, I feel nauseous or whatever. But guess what? Like, she is asleep. Like, passed out asleep. And he starts touching her inappropriately. And she is absolutely asleep. And then he realizes his hand is covered with blood. But guess what? It's because flesh-eating bacteria. That was not okay. There's zero consent there.
Was that? I thought they had already had sex at that point, or not?
I mean, I don't know, but at the same time, if someone is passed out and says they feel sick, are you going to finger them? You better say no.
I plead no. I would not do that. But all I'm going to say is, if you are with somebody you think might have flesh-eating bacteria, at least wear a condom, use protection. I don't even think he did.
Well, no, they absolutely did not. And these dum-dums.
Wasn't he saying his weenus burned? And he was like putting water on it and stuff?
No, he poured Listerine on it. Like, that is intense.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, my goodness.
And then after that, with all this stuff going on, the girl takes a bath and she's shaving her legs.
Oh, yeah. Okay. P.S. in the infected water. And, okay, so you know that, like, people are dying. You know that there's this flesh-eating bacteria. You know that your back is hurting more than it should. And you're going to take a bath, which, okay, understandable. But then why would you shave your legs at this point? I mean, maybe, but also I realize it was like a moment. And like you said, it's like they came up with these ideas for moments, even though they didn't make sense. It's like, oh, well, it's a great visual of her shaving her legs and her flesh is coming off. But it absolutely doesn't make sense. Ladies, like, tell me the truth. We don't shave our legs unless we absolutely have to, right?
Yeah, I thought you were supposed to do that before you sleep with somebody. But anyway, yeah, no, it was just an excuse. Because it was a cool scene to, like, see her shaving her legs and all of a sudden, like, all her skin's just falling off. So, I mean, that was cool. But, I mean, it in the context of the whole situation, it just didn't make sense for her to be bathing and shaving her legs at that time.
So, I appreciate the gore. The gore was good. And the visuals were good, but a lot of it didn't make sense. Also, I don't remember the character name, but the guy from Boy Meets World. Wait, was it Sean?
His name might have been Sean in that show. So I'm sorry.
Well, we don't know what his character's name is in this movie, but all of a sudden he's just like okay with killing everybody. But maybe that happens in this situation. I don't know. I've never been in this situation.
He just starts, anyone who he comes across that even slightly poses any kind of threat to him, he just instantly starts killing them. I don't even think we talked about the cop yet, did we?
No, but like, what is with this dude? He does not seem like a cop at all. And I saw that one of his credits was Detroit Rock City. I'm like, yeah, he fits that vibe, but he does not fit the vibe of a cop in this show.
It didn't make much sense. He looked like he was about 16 years old. He could barely grow a mustache. Like, he had like a terrible mustache. And he was like the cop of the small town. Like, I can't remember how he got called out there, but he's just like, you guys gonna party out here? Yeah, I'm gonna come hang out with you guys. And he was talking about how he parties and like sleeps with chicks and stuff. So it's just kind of weird.
I mean, not that there aren't corrupt cops, but he just seems, completely out of place.
Yeah, it's just really, really bad casting. Like, I don't even know what they were thinking there. The guy wasn't a good actor, and the cat, he just looked all wrong, and it's just, I don't know, it took you out of it.
There was another cool visual when they were showing the girl in the shed, like in what her flesh-eating virus, bacteria had gone to. Like, we saw her face, and it was just like everything was deteriorated, and we only saw her teeth. Like, that was good gore. That was good special effects.
No, that was a good scene. I mean, good special effects, good visual. It was creepy. So that was good. There's a lot of stuff like that, like the kind of Hunter Hick guy, like, was waiting behind the door with his gun when the cops came to get him, and they basically just like shot him and he just exploded. That was cool too, but I don't know.
Yeah, like, okay, and so there's, speaking of like how we were talking about throwbacks and homages to horror, there was this Evil Dead scene where they threw someone in a cellar. I mean, the whole cabin itself was an Evil Dead homage. But when they threw someone in the cellar, that was pretty cool. And then also, like, the whole end of this movie felt like the Night of the Living Dead, because here's this guy who absolutely does not have the virus, and spoiler alert, Night of the Living Dead, this guy who is not a zombie, but the cops come and kill them anyway. And P.S., didn't you feel like maybe the cops were used to this? Like, this is happening and there's this virus always going around and they're just like dealing with it all the time?
It seemed like they were way too prepared and way too like ho-hum about like, okay, we got to go out to this place and just kill these people. Remember? And then one of the guys had this kit. Mm-hmm. He's like, go get the kit, bring the kit. And so the guy had this kit, like a box, but we never found out what the kit was.
Exactly. It never came into play. So maybe we need to go and see the sequels. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to look it up after this. But truly, he was holding this wooden box and it's like, go get the kit. But we don't know what it means. Okay, so the best part is, okay, like everybody dies. And then we see at the end that these kids are having a lemonade stand, but it's using the water that is absolutely 100% corrupted from the dead bodies with this flesh-eating bacteria. And the cops are drinking it like everyone's going to get it. It's not good, Mark.
Yeah, there's this weird, like, what do you call that? What kind of music is that? Like Trampled by Turtles, whatever. Band there at the end. So, like, the whole town is there listening to this band, and they're all drinking this lemonade that these kids got the water from the contaminated water source. So can only imagine what happens after that.
Yeah, hence the sequels, right? And they tried to be a tiny bit inclusive by having a scene with people of color at the end, but I mean, really?
Well, in the beginning, this old guy in the store, he has a gun, and they're like, "Oh, what's that gun for?" And he says, "That's for
the N-word."
The N-word. But then at the end, these black people come into the store, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like giving them all five, and then he like, "I fixed your gun" or something, and he gives them back to him. So I don't know. I just thought that was completely unnecessary.
Oh, it was like, wait, what are you trying to say, and what are you trying to do? I don't know. Mark, we need to rank this movie on a scale of 0 to 10.
Do we have to?
We have to. 0 being you hated it, 10 being you think it's a perfect movie. First of all, what's our scale? Is it beers? Because the only safe thing to drink is beers?
Yeah, and they were drinking it's called Arrogant Bastard. And I know
Is that a real beer?
Yeah, it's still around. So, and I know Luke Hofdahl brewed one. Can't remember exactly what he called it, something bastard, and it was supposed to like be very similar to that one. So,
did you feel it was?
I don't know if I've ever had the Arrogant Bastard, so I don't know. I can't compare it, but
oh, so how many Arrogant Bastards beers do you give Cabin Fever?
I'm gonna give it 3. The plot was lacking. The acting wasn't great. I don't know. All the dialogues, nothing really made sense. There was some cool visual aspects, but aside from that, there was some creepy, I don't know, like backwoods hick type stuff, I guess. Kind of like Deliverance, but overall, it just seemed like, I don't know, whoever made it, it almost seemed like amateurs made it to me.
Oh, wow. Mark, people are going to at you after this. People are going to at you on Twitter, okay? But, wait, what are you going to say about that?
Well, I'm just going to say whoever ats me and says this movie's good is wrong, so.
Okay, so I'm giving it 3.5. The only reason I'm giving it that half extra is because I appreciate the gore and I appreciate the flesh-eating bacteria, but like truly everything else, no, it's not. It wasn't great. I'm sorry. And that's how I feel. So don't at me, at Mark.
Yeah, like a perfect representation of something stupid in this movie is the guy sees the dead body like in the reservoir or like the water source, and he climbs down this really rickety ladder to like poke the body with a stick.
Why would you poke anything with a stick?
Yeah, why would you like go down this rickety ladder and then the ladder breaks and he falls on the dead body? I mean, I don't know. It just, nothing made sense and nobody acted like properly. So,
like truly. So friends, listen, we're going to watch the remakes, or at least I will, and I'll tell you if we need to record on them, Mark, but I just don't even know. I don't know. I did not think it was great. I'm sorry. If you think it's great, maybe email us or tell us why, but I didn't love it. I don't know.
I just read the title again on my sheet of paper here, and Cabin Fever is kind of a clever name because there is this like weird virus out there, so I'm going to up my score to 3.5.
Oh, boom. Oh, no. Mark, I mean, it's a clever title, but at the same time, like, what? I don't even know. I don't know. So, friends, go out and watch horror movies because we love them. We support them. This one, maybe we didn't love, but there's so many horror movies coming out this month, including Fantasy Island and Invisible Man, and go see Gretel and Hansel.
I will say something about even a bad horror movie, in my opinion, is fun. It's fun to watch. Sometimes you can kind of like start kind of poking fun at the movie. You know, if it's like more of a serious like drama type movie and it's bad, it's just bad. But like there's something to be said, I think, for like a bad horror movie.
There you go. Like truly though, Any horror movie is better than any other movie.
I agree with that 100%.
This is why we are soulmates.
Yes, that's why, right?
Until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye.